Welcome to week 3 of VBA. This week what we're going to do is bring together the skills that we've learned in the previous 2 weeks in VBA together with what we've covered in lectures, the theory and spreadsheet work we've done to build a variance-covariance matrix using VBA. Now we've seen in lectures why the variance-covariance matrix is really useful in order for constructing a portfolio, but learning the VBA of how to construct it will save a lot of time in the long run. So let's go through that. So in this sheet we've been given the annual returns for 6 stocks from 1974 to 1983, and we want to construct the variance-covariance matrix of these 6 stocks, which will be down here. So the first step is calculating the mean return of each stock. So let's go into VisualBasic, and again double click on this workbook as we've done in previous weeks. And so we're creating a subroutine. The first subroutine we're creating is called Varkov mean, and this is to calculate the mean returns here of each stock. Alright. So first we'll define that array, so it's similar to what we did last week. Which will be double because it's an array. Now, one thing we'll do different this week is we're going to add comments to every line. Now, it's good practice when doing VBA to add comments because they help coders later on when they're coming back and looking at the code to decipher what's happening and decipher what each line of code does. So to add a comment, all you have to do is put a single speech mark and then after that write a description of what that line is doing. So here that first line is calculating, is defining the array for the mean returns. It's defining this. And so we just add a comment. And you can put whatever you want in there just to help yourself later on or another coder work out what the code means in that on that line. And you'll see it'll come up green for when it comes up with the comment. Alright, then we'll define something called no-col, and it'll be equal to the range return. So we're naming ranges again like we did last week. And we want no-col, we just want to count the number of columns. Or the number of stocks. So if we go back into thing. So because we're defining, so you see here we're defining this range returns, we have to name this in Excel. So we grab all our returns and then in that top left hand box like we did last week we enter returns, and that will name those returns so that it will count the number of stocks here. Now the code we're building this week is a little bit more advanced than last week because we're building something a code that could be used for any number of stocks for any number of periods. It's not just simply limited to only 6 stocks only over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. We're doing it could be any number. And that's the beauty and the benefit of VBA, that once you've built code it can often be applied to data no matter how big the data set is. Alright, so that's counting the number of stocks there. Now the next line here, we want to redefine, so redim just redefines x to be, now we have to put the size in. Before we just left it empty, but now you remember you have to define how big the array is, and we know that it's as big as the number of columns. It's as wide as there are stocks. So here there's 6 stocks for instance, so we're telling VBA that that array there is 6 columns wide. But if there were 20 stocks it would be 20 columns wide, and then VBA would define that as 20. So it's however many stocks there are. It's double because it's an array. So this is defining the size of the array x. Now we want to calculate the returns by doing a for loop. So we're saying for 1 to the number of columns, make xi, so in this case it'll be for 1 to 6, make x equal to application.average for the whole range returns, so I'll just say for each x, so for example x1, we'll do that first column here, we'll calculate the average for that. Then it's saying do next I, which will tell it to do the next column and next column, next column, all the way from column 1 to column 6. So that's calculating that, and then we'll get it to display these answers, so from 1 to the number of columns. Get the range means. So we'll have to define that range means, so we'll do that here. So we'll go there, define that means. So for the range means, each column get xi, which will be the average for each column, and then do it for the next I. So it's saying for each I, get that number we calculated here, and enter it into each column as you go. And then we'll add a quick comment saying what all that does, and what it does is it displays the result of array x in the range called means. So that's what all that is doing there. So now we can play this macro, and there you go. It's calculated each of the averages for each of the stocks. But note that that macro would work for 6 stocks, but it also worked for 60 stocks. It would just extend it all the way out.